Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Our first question comes from our friend Raven, who asks, let's see here. Ramsey, what do you think of Icy Mike from the Hard2Hurt channel? Oh, okay, yeah. Man, Icy Mike, a while back he did a parody video of me and Master Wong. It was pretty funny. I saw that, got a few good laughs out of it. And yeah, haven't heard from Icy Mike in a while. I do know he recently passed the 100,000 subscriber mark, so that's kind of a huge benchmark for him. Maybe I should give him a video call and congratulate him in person. Hold on. Okay. Oh, hey, Mike, how's it going? Oh, hey, Ramsey, what's up? I heard that you passed the 100,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. Well, that's huge, man. Congratulations. The thing is, it is and it isn't. Hey, Mike, I got a question for you. So you're really good at doing these funny impersonations of martial arts YouTubers. You even did one of me. I want to know, what's your secret? Those things are great. So, the thing is, if you want to sound like Ramsey Dewey, it's really easy. All you have to do is do your best impersonation of Obama. Yes, we can. Or talk like Dave Chappelle trying to sound like a white guy. Oh, hey, I can't stay and talk because the thing is, we're going to test out these here Klingon pain sticks to see how effective they are for, self-defense. Oh, okay. You do what you gotta do, man. This was a mistake! Alright. Thanks, Icy Mike. Well, there you have it. Next question. If you have questions, leave them in the comments down below or send me an email at ramseydewey@gmail.com. For everybody wondering how to ask me questions for this show. Our first question comes from Manic Opaque, who says, Ramsey, how long do you think it takes untrained people to gas out? In my experience, not very long, about 30 seconds or less, if they're fighting. He says, would it be worth training so you can get to the point where a person will either quit or become so sloppy you can beat them up easily? Yes, this is a for the streets question. Give it up for my boy, Master Wong. But more on one-on-one fights, not multiple people or weapons. Yeah, absolutely. You should focus on being able to last in a fight, because if you're fighting for 10 seconds or 30 seconds and you're done, and the other guy has gas in his tank, he's gonna beat you. This happens almost every time a beginner comes into a martial arts class, an MMA class, a grappling class, a kickboxing class, whatever type of class they're not used to. What happens is that they move in a way that their body has not adapted to, and they get tired. So after half a minute or less, they're done. So yeah, when you up your cardio, if you will, and I'm putting cardio in quotes, I would strongly recommend you watch my video about the cardio myth, because it's more about muscular adaptation than, how strong your heart is, if you will. Because you can be a distance runner, you can run marathons, you can have your heart in great shape for that type of activity, and it's not the same type of muscular adaptation that you need for wrestling, for example. So if you're a marathon runner who's never grappled, and then you try to wrestle, you're going to be done in about half a minute. That's just how the human body works. Whereas, if you're a wrestler who's never run, you're going to gas out trying to do the marathon. So the body will adapt to the demands you put on it. Next question. Our friend Ash Hug says, hey Ramsey, or anyone really, so if you have an answer for him, leave it down in the comments below. He says, I've locked in my first fight for February. I'm 6'4", and I weigh 205 pounds or 93 kilos. I'm pretty lean. Some people in the club reckon I should drop to 83 kilos and others to 88.5, and my coach reckons just stay at 93 kilos, or light heavy. I'm not too fussed, but some of the guys reckon if I stay at 93 kilos, I'll fight someone who's dropped from 100 or 105. I thought you had to fight at your weight, but apparently you don't. Ha ha ha. I don't really know how the whole competition side of things work. I just study how to fight. How do you find your optimal power to weight ratio? And could you do a video kind of explaining how competitions and ranking and titles and all that work? Okay, this is a layered, tiered question. He goes on to say, like my friends from all different clubs went and competed at a BJJ tournament, and about 5 came back with gold medals, all the same belts, all the same size. WTF, not talking about Taekwondo. How should there be, shouldn't there be one gold medal, and then in MMA, if you win a title or you lose, then you lose your title? Where in the running or something you win a... Okay. I'm just going to skip the last of that. He's talking about a few different things. So the first part of your question, how to determine your weight class. Especially when you're starting out, you're going to get a lot of bad ideas, a lot of bad advice from people telling you to cut weight. I don't think you should cut a significant amount of weight for your first fight. If you are close to the threshold, maybe if you're like 1 or 2 kilos over, then yes, spit in a bucket, poop, sweat a little bit, and then you'll be at the weight class that you should be in, right? But if you have to cut a significant amount of weight, like 13 kilos, how much were your friends telling you to cut? Some ridiculous sum? Okay, your friends are telling you to cut 10 kilos. Especially for your first fight, that's going to heavily affect your performance. If you want to see what a massive weight cut can do, man, the biggest weight cut I ever did was somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 pounds. I cut about 30 pounds or like 14 kilos of water weight in less than a day. Had this really stupid fight. I got kind of tricked into fighting a 3rd degree black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion in Singapore. And I got there, and I was told by the guy who was managing me at the time that it was going to be a catch weight close to my walking around weight. And I was all right. That's cool. I'll just, cut a little bit of weight, spit in a bucket, poop, sweat in the sauna for 5 minutes. I'll be good. And then I get there and they tell me, oh, no. You're fighting at featherweight. You have to drop like 3 weight classes. And the sauna was broken. So I had to sweat off 30 pounds of water weight. And you might be thinking, why didn't you just say no? Well, I had a contract to fight, and their stipulation was, if you don't do it, if you don't make weight, if you don't do this fight, you don't get a fight back home from Singapore. You're stuck here. So what do fighters do? Fighters fight. It's just what we do. You put a fight in front of us, even if it's an impossible one. You just do. You just do it. So you can see that fight on the ESPN Stars channel, and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's my worst fight ever by a long shot. And this was over a decade ago, over 10 years ago. And, I'm sloppy, I'm slow, I'm like throwing punches from a mile away from the guy because the room's spinning, I couldn't see, I could barely stand up. It heavily affected my performance, it affected my mindset. It was terrible. So don't do that to yourself in your first fight. That was not my first fight. Man, I had a whole kickboxing career before that. I had, I think, 6 professional MMA fights before that. And looking at that, it looks like the first time I ever stepped in a cage, it looked like I was physically retarded. That is what extreme weight cutting does for you. 10 kilos, that's a lot, man. Even for experienced professionals who are used to weight cutting, you don't want to cut more than 10% of your body weight, if that. So cut as little as possible. So I would say fight close to your walking around weight, especially when you're starting out. Again, if you are maybe 1 or 2 kilos over, that's fine. Cut that weight, sweat it off, poop it out, pee it out, whatever, spit it out. Did you know the human body carries about 9 pounds of fecal matter in the colon? So if you can just poop that out, man, that's the best way to cut weight because it's not going to impede your performance. It won't drain you of electrolytes. Because without electrolytes, your nervous system doesn't work. It just doesn't. I don't care how good you are. If you sweat off 30 pounds, you'll look like crap in a fight. You will look like garbage. You will perform like garbage. It is a danger to yourself. A couple weeks after that fight, that martial combat fight. Martial combat later became 1FC. There was a fighter who died cutting less weight than I did. He cut about 20 pounds or about 10 kilos, which is what your friends are asking you to do the first time you fight. Don't do that. Do not do that. If you are going to do an extreme weight cut, which is anything over 10% of your body weight, do it under close medical supervision, not under the recommendation of your gym buddies who don't understand what that does to you. So yeah, you're on the right track. Fighters do have the option to cut weight, although 1FC, since that incident, since that martial combat incident where the guy, I don't remember his name, the guy died cutting weight a few weeks after I had that extreme weight cut in that stupid fight. They decided to implement some new rules regarding weight cutting to limit the amount of weight the fighters could cut to basically save lives and stop that from happening again. So my advice, one more time, I'm stressing this again and again and again in this video, especially starting out, fight close to your walking around weight. Yeah, the other guy might cut a bunch of weight. He might be doing an extreme weight cut to get down to your level, but you know what? If he does that, he is putting himself at a disadvantage. He's putting himself at a disadvantage at least as great as yours, if not more, being the smaller fighter in that situation. So just don't do it. The second part of your question was kind of interesting. Let's see here. I think you had 3 questions. How do you find your optimal power to weight ratio? Take Jack Dempsey's advice and weigh your skeleton. Basically, weigh yourself underwater, do a body composition analysis to find out how much your skeleton weighs. Because how big your bones are determines how much lean muscle mass you will have on your body, or should have on your body. And the last part of your question, so you have friends in different clubs, and a bunch of them came back with gold medals. They're all the same weight, all the same belt level. How does that happen? Okay, that's the IBJJF for you. The IBJJF crowns, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 world champions every year. And so the word world champion kind of loses its significance. Man, on the mat at the gym, I've rolled with and tapped out many world champions, IBJJF world champions before. And that's nothing to brag about because they're everywhere. And also, it's in the gym, and it's a role, and it's just training, and we're learning, and it's not about winning and losing. But at the same time, that phrase world champion, as far as IBJJF is concerned, because there are so many of them, as you put out, in the same weight class, at the same belt level, yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose. World champion kind of means you're the best person in the world at that thing that you do. And if there are 400 of you, yeah, that's not a real world champion. Next. Our next question comes from our friend Paulina. She says, I have one question. I quite often catch a cold. If I feel really bad, I can't exercise. But can I train when I'm getting better but still having a cold? You're awesome. I love your channel and can't wait for your next video. All right, Paulina, thank you for watching. Thanks for being a fan of the channel. If you are sick, to be as blunt as possible, if you are sick with something contagious, don't train. As a courtesy to your training partners, you don't want to get them sick too. Just don't do it. Stay home, rest, recover, get better. So when you get back to the gym, you're not going to infect other people with a cold, especially if it's grappling, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, something like that, where you're very close contact, exchanging bodily fluids, sweat anyway, possibly even spit or, breathing on each other. That is a thriving ground for germs, which is why it is so important to shower off after every training session. Why it's so important to wash your belts. All you guys who think your martial arts belts have magic powers, wash those things with your uniform. You can fight me in the comments on that, but man, if you are the one responsible for spreading scabies and ringworm and all of that stuff because you don't wash part of your uniform when you should, screw you, man. Screw you. Yeah, I'm going to go that far. That is just, it goes beyond not being classy. It goes beyond being sloppy. It is a legitimate threat to the health and safety of your training partners. So if you have a cold, I mean, that's not as bad as a staph infection that can kill you, but yeah, you don't want to give those to your training partners. So stay home, rest, recover. If you're getting colds a lot, reevaluate your lifestyle a little bit, especially how you sleep and how you eat, and your stress levels. Are you getting proper nutrition? Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping enough? Is your sleep high quality? If not, do everything you can to prioritize that over everything else right now. Get better. Feel better. Next question. Our friend Alberto asks me, what is my issue with the 12-6 elbow rule? So the unified rules of mixed martial arts state that a downward elbow or a 12-6 elbow thrown in this fashion from the top to the bottom is a foul. And I hate that, and I think it's a stupid rule. That rule was penned by a boxing commission, by the New Jersey State Athletic Commission in the year 2000. That was principally a group of boxing commissioners. I believe there was one doctor, and referee John McCarthy, UFC referee, was there trying to do some damage control to save the sport of MMA, to keep it as pure and as close to real fighting as possible. And there was a doctor who saw, and there are a bunch of myths about this, about he saw some karate demonstration or something, but I believe it was a fight between Remco Pardul and Orlando, what's his last name? Orlando Viet, something like that. Anyway, Remco got on top and started dropping downward elbows on Orlando when he was in this pinned position. He wasn't able to move, and knocked him out cold. It was pretty brutal. And because of this fight or some other fight like it, the ring doctor said, I will never sign off on a sport that allows that type of elbow. That's just too dangerous. And John McCarthy tried to reason with him, saying, you can actually produce more power with, a round elbow like this. This isn't necessarily more dangerous than that. And there were arguments like, well, if you strike the back of the head with a downward elbow, then problems, which is true, but striking the back of the head, neck, spine was already a foul. So there's no point of making it a double foul, in my opinion. I'm a strong advocate of the idea that mixed martial arts needs fewer rules, not more. So 12-6 elbows, bring them back. Bring them back. As long as you keep no strikes to the back of the head, neck, or spine, this is not going to present some great safety hazard that doesn't already exist in mixed martial arts. So that is my problem with the 12-6 elbow. Next. Our last question comes from our friend Ink Thinks, who says, Ramsey, do you have any advice for finding the balance between being spazzy and still putting forth legitimate effort into jiu-jitsu? I am the biggest guy in my fundamental class by a good 8 inches and 60 pounds. And so I can get a lot done if I give, am I reading this right? If I give into spazzy tendencies against unexperienced, smaller opponents. Okay, so basically if he spazzes out and, he can squish people. But I really want to learn to fight that urge. When I roll, I have also tried to breathe and relax, but this leads to me being so passive that I become a grappling bag for them to practice on. Where's the middle ground? Okay. Find that middle ground, man. Okay, I understand what you're saying, man. I absolutely understand what you're saying. Imagine for a moment that you are teaching a kids class and you're grappling with small children. I recently started teaching a kids jiu-jitsu class. And when you grapple with small children, you have to have a lot of control. You have to have so much control over that situation. Not just so you don't hurt them, but also so you're teaching them at the same time. Teaching them what works and what doesn't. Because when you're sparring with somebody who is tiny, somebody who is 5 times smaller than you, man, a lot could go wrong. A lot could go wrong. Spazzing what that really means is trying to move through solid objects. So, obviously that can't be done, but if you're really, really big, and you have someone really, really small on top of you, or in front of you, or beneath you, trying to move through that solid object tends to squish them and crush them and push them off of you. So, I had a student who was a really big guy, and he was in a similar situation to yours, and he was just crushing everybody, and he was trying to be nice, but he was so big and so strong, he would just squish people when he was trying to not to squish them. And it was hard for him to determine the difference between legitimate technique, like what is going to work on someone my own size, and, what works on this tiny little guy that I can just, push away with 2 fingers. Okay? And a couple of pieces of advice. Once again, pretend for a moment that you are grappling with small children. Now, that doesn't mean let them beat you all the time. When I'm grappling with a small child, or when I'm grappling with a significantly smaller, weaker person or a beginner, I'll let them work if they're doing the right things, if they're putting themselves in the right position. I'll let them work for it. I won't just squish them and crush them, because I want them to know grappling techniques work. Jiu-jitsu works if you're in the right position. If they find themselves out of position, or they're doing some nonsense they shouldn't be doing, I'll give them a quick reminder by getting a reversal or escaping their bad submission attempt or whatever it is. But I want them to know what works and what doesn't work. But if you're starting out, you're not at that level yet. You don't necessarily know where to draw the line. Okay? So what I said to my big friend was, start calling the shots. Calling the shots, it's a pool, billiards term, right? You can say, I want this ball to go into that pocket right there, and then you try to make that shot. Okay, you can do the same thing in jiu-jitsu, and this is tremendously helpful. Okay, find a technique you want to learn, like maybe you want to learn the triangle choke. You want to learn how to set that up well. Okay, and that's a technique that most of the time you're going to set up from the bottom, which is going to force you to get a little more technical than squishing people from the top. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to choke everybody with a triangle choke today, I'm going to tap everybody out with a triangle choke today, then you'll start learning all of these pathways to get to that submission. Okay? Now there are a lot of ways you can muscle through it and force the triangle to happen. And at first when you try this drill, that's probably what's going to happen. You're probably just going to muscle people into that position and stuff them around like you're kneading dough to make bread. And that's okay, because the more you do this, the more you're going to realize there's a more efficient way to do this, and you're going to find those more efficient ways. And generally, when we use strength against our opponents, they start using strength against us. It's our natural gut-level reaction to react to violence with equal and opposite violence. Somebody punches you, you punch them back. Somebody pushes you, you push them back. So, call the shots in your grappling. Call the shots. If you learn a new sweep or something, tell yourself, I am going to use that sweep against everyone and nothing else. I'm not going to manhandle them. I'm not going to squish them. I'm not going to crush them. I'm just going to go for that sweep. I'm going to get that sweep. Then I'm going to move out of top position. I'm going to try it again. And again, and again, and again, until I master that sweep and figure out all of the troubleshooting in that sweep. So I get really technical. I hope that helps. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.